less stable. And the old way of doing that was to put terraces in as you go down the hill. That wastes a lot of land because it takes more land to create those benches that you can drive on. And it's also really disruptive in terms of moving soil around, and there's lots of erosion risk that way. So generally, as you look at these modern vineyards, and there are plenty of them around in the county, on steep slopes, they go up and down the slopes with their roads. So then it might be, could be any direction really, depending on where you are on the mountain. So, what else can I say? Obviously, we're using a drip system for irrigation. We've got one emitter on each vine here. The system was actually designed to put 2 emitters on, and we've just kept the one, but I think this year we're going to do, in weaker areas, we're going to add a second emitter as a way to, what we're trying to do is like Kai said, grow a really even, consistent product here. And so to do that, you need vines that are pretty consistent. And we have some areas that are weaker than others. So on those, we're going to add a second emitter and see if we can't adjust that by doing just that step. In another part of the ranch where we have really rocky soils, we've actually put in a second drip tube so that we can actually irrigate certain vines and not others. So we will have, you would see 2 drip tubes on this row here. Some vines may only have emitters on the main system, and others might have 3 emitters on a certain vine if it's a really rocky area. So,
David, we should probably mention that in this vineyard here, 12 acre vineyard, and we have 5 different soil types. So we have used 5 different types of rootstock to compensate for the different types of soils. I'm not saying any of it is good or bad, but we just, again, try to be consistent in everything we do. And that's why the irrigation also has to be adapted to that. Yeah. Yeah. And the different soils. But again, it comes down to the end goal, having consistent grapes at the same time. Last year, because it was a weird season, we actually harvested this vineyard, was it 5 times, Dave? 4. And the cost of doing that and having 4 different fermentation tanks going on, we wanted the right product, and that's why we did it. Get something where you have some half-ripe grapes in there, and you get some grassy flavors and stuff like that. We believe that's a mistake, so that's why we try to compensate for it in different ways, all the way from the moment we plan, the way they farm.
As the vines mature, after a few more years, much of this variability will go away, because as they mature, they settle down. They're not like teenagers. Some kids are growing fast, and some have pimples, and others have greasy hair, and whatever. So vines have that same problem, and so as they mature, all of that will moderate and be much easier.
Yeah, and another thing is that as they mature, you get more canopy, and then you can manage the canopy. You can't add to a small canopy, so there you can sort of control the sun exposure, and you don't get the bird food when we get that retracted. Yeah.
What's the higher wire for?
This is we call these catch wires. Well, actually, we've got a set of catch wires that they've put down these here. What will happen is after we prune and the shoots emerge, they grow up, and as they get maybe this tall, we will move this wire up to about here on both sides to hold that canopy in here.
It's the leftover from last year.
And then later, as they grow further up, we try to keep them in here. And on this wire, this set of wires here, we don't try to have everything. We actually want a little bit of foliage part here we want pretty well controlled so that we have that openness down in here that we can, it's easier to keep the fruit more aerated. A little bit of sun getting into the buds.
There's a lot of different ways to do this. Is that different varietals, like different, I mean, would you use this catch system for any kind of grape?
Yes and no. I think it depends more on the conditions of the site than it does the variety of fruit. You know, this system, I don't imagine that we will ever do any machine harvesting in here, but this system lends itself well to a mechanical harvesting. And it also is, you know, with the tighter, these are 8-foot rows. We have some vineyards on this ranch that are 6 foot between. You've got to keep things really pretty well vertical in order to get equipment through such a tight space. But this is pretty common these days. You know, again, there's variations in pruning style, but having wire, having vines growing vertically is pretty common. And there are some, like back to the Sauvignon Blanc in the valley, where you've got lots of vigor. You know, frequently you'll see vines that have a cross arm here with actually, instead of a bilateral cordon system, they will have a quadrilateral system where the vine will actually come out and go with 2 cordons this way and 2 cordons this way. So you've actually got twice the amount of growth points as you would on this vine for the same spacing. And you still have massive canopies in those systems. So it's just, you know, this soil is not nearly as fertile. It's much more well drained than those valley soils. So these vines struggle a little more. And
which is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
And that's on better first.
Yeah.
The yields will be suppressed here, certainly. I mean, you know, eventually we'll probably get a 4, maybe 5 tons per acre here. In the valley, it's easy to see double that on some of the vines there. And it makes different style wines, and you know, these things work in blends, and so there's as many people that would rather pick 4 tons per acre Sauvignon Blanc as there are people who would rather pick 10 tons per acre Sauvignon Blanc, and the wines that come from those. So it depends on the program that we're pursuing. Anybody want to cut some, do some pruning? Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to take turns here.
Yeah.
You can walk down to that end and just look at the guys there.
Sure. Maybe we could do that. You go watching? I don't know. So what do you want to leave 2 little buds?
You want to leave 2 buds. You've actually got 2 canes here. I would cut this one off close, and I would leave this one here.
So where you mean 2 buds?
2
this
buds.
Bud
One
and that
and
bud?
One here and one.
Okay.
This isn't the bud. It's a tendril from last year.
Tendril.
Why not right on top of the bud? Is there
Just, it's not that critical. I mean, you get
So
down
there's
too
some
close,
bud
you
back.
might actually damage
Get
the
the
bud.
bud, okay.
Yeah. Another thing we do, we don't like to do these kinds of cuts for the final cut, because this is inviting a puncture or a wound on a hand, and we do hand work in here later in the year. So.
Huh. But is that what, if it rains, is when it's like that? I heard that when they cut on an angle, so that water, just that doesn't,
It's not that critical. These vines are actually going to start weeping very soon, which means that as the vine comes out of dormancy, the sap is starting to flow in the wood, and these will actually start dripping with,
so it protects.
Yeah, so it protects itself.
It'll heal over